a lot of things to build on. And that's what we've been trying to do. I think as far as Syracuse goes, the things that always are going to remain constant with them is their athleticism, their length. They get a lot of steals and block shots. They're some of the nation's leaders in that offensively. They're doing a great job of getting the ball in the paint. They get to the foul line. They've got very good players at every position, and it seems like they really understand what they're trying to get out of every position right now. The things that we want to be focused on as much as anything, whether it's where we need to improve or things that we didn't do as well down there last year in DC last year, we've got to take care of the ball. The turnovers and the mental errors were some of the most painful things in the first time that we played them. And right now, our turnovers have got to get cut down. I mean, there's no question about that. Syracuse does a great job getting to the foul line. We've got to make sure we're not putting them on the foul line, giving them easy baskets. They shoot a great percentage with a lot of attempts. And we've just got to play smart. I don't want to say simple basketball, but we don't need to complicate it. And I know that's going to be easier said than done with it being a true road game and the level of play that Syracuse is at. But we've got to take care of the ball because, again, they capitalize so well on turnovers. But that's the biggest area for us. And then I think offensively, too, you got to get a really good shot. It doesn't matter if it's early in the clock. It doesn't matter if it's late in the clock. You've got to get a really good shot. They are very good at getting you to settle. And I think settling is a recipe for a disaster. And I think bottom line, we've got to have very good ball movement, body movement inside of the game. And I know our guys are excited to play. So here we go.
A lot of fans are looking at it as a rematch, but you're both drastically different teams. How are they different?
Well, they're different. Obviously, it speaks for itself and what they've lost and what we've lost with the pro and graduation losses that we both had. But we can't focus on rematch. We can focus on the things we've learned from the game, but it's two different teams. Basically what I said in the sense of where they're different, but they're not different in the sense that C.J. Fair is an All-American and playing very well. The front line is back, with the exception of Sutherland. And the length, the athleticism, the ability to get steals and block shots and be very hard to score against. And they do a great job of limiting you to that one shot. That's where they're the same.
Some of the things that the Baylor got in that game, are those things that any team can get against Syracuse, or are those a little more Baylor-specific type things?
No, I think it all comes down to what your philosophy is. We don't want to go in there and we're not trying to go in there and play slow. And sometimes it's easier said than done on the road with that, but you just have to go in and do what you do. And we've been putting a lot of points on the board. We've been getting very good ball movement. Our shot selection continues to improve. The bottom line is taking care of the basketball. It really is. We've got to make sure that we do enough to get to the foul line. We didn't get to the foul line enough when we played them in DC, and frankly, if the rules were in place the way they were now, and last year we'd have probably gone from 26 to maybe up to 40 free throws. But it wasn't the same. It's a different game now, and so you've got to be in a position where you are taking advantage of the way the game is called, and it can't be, well, they're in zone, so they're not aggressive. Well, they are aggressive. So you've got to continue to make that aggressiveness work for you instead of being in a situation where you settle. And I think you could look at all the teams that have played them, and at certain points in times, the reason they're undefeated is because teams were attacking them, and at some point they stopped attacking. And I think you've got to continue to play and take what the game has given you the entire game. You got to play smart, but you got to take what the game has given you.
Was that ever, I guess, a problem last March? And I know it was a different cast of characters on both sides, but just, I guess, sustaining aggressiveness, especially against that zone.
No question about it, because we were too fast at times, but we didn't run enough, and we just made too many mistakes. We made too many mistakes in the game, and we picked a bad time to not have a good game. But the bottom line is it's completely different. It doesn't do a lot of good to put a lot of time into that game because everybody's so different. But when you're playing against teams like that, you've got to have concepts. You have to have plays, but you've got to have concepts that you can rely on and you can go to. And one thing for us a year ago, we shot the ball extremely well from three, and in that game we didn't. And we didn't get as good a look. And you still got to have other ways to get there. We didn't get to the foul line enough. We didn't get enough offensive rebounds. Well, those are things that we've got to be able to do now, because we are, no matter what, no matter who we play, we've got to be able to get the ball inside, we've got to be able to get it into the paint, we've got to be able to get second shots, we've got to get to the foul line. Those things are important.
I remember Coach Boeheim last year talked about that they were going to take their big guards and attack your smaller guards. You're bigger now. You have more length. How much of an advantage now does that give you?
Well, they did a good job of that, but I mean, again, we self-inflicted a little bit of that with our mental errors and with our turnovers. But there's no question that at that point in time, the length was different than what we're used to. But I think, again, we have a completely different team now. I think that the way that you go about setting your offense, so to speak, in this game, as much as you can, you want it, like I said earlier, you want to simplify it as much as possible, but you just want to do what you're best at. And I think for us in this game, because obviously it'd be silly for us to go up there and think we're just going to outshoot them from the three-point line in this game. That's not what our team is right now. But there's still a lot of different ways that we can play and attack in this game, and we've got to do a good job of staying committed and true to those.
How different, I guess, just in that vein, can your game plan be? Because there's more length, because maybe especially defensively against a team that does have a lot of athletes like they do.
Well, they have very good individual scores, and I think anytime you have that, you not only have to be concerned about your one-on-one defense, but your help defense has got to be really good. And I think the fact that we've played a couple teams now that have got really good scores helps us just get more of an understanding, especially with the younger players in that. But they've got real strengths. I mean, there's really, when you look at them, you see some real consistency. Cooney's shooting, Fair's ability to score, Grant's relentlessness and aggressiveness and quickness and speed and ability to get to the rim and shoot pull-ups. Tyler Ennis just continues to distribute the ball and play with great poise for a freshman. Keita and Christmas and Coleman are around the bucket all the time with tremendous offensive rebounders. I think the fact that there is so much, they're so aggressive on the backboards, that's going to be a great show for us.
Kind of addressed this, but I mean, how do you feel like your team does match up against the 2-3 in terms of just the?
Well, I think we just have to get really good ball movement and body movement. The one thing you cannot do is settle. You can't come down and stand around. Those are the biggest things, and then you really have to be committed to making sure you're getting the best shot you can get, whether it's early, whether it's late, anywhere in between. There's definitely different attack points that we think are there, but again, you just gotta let the kind of game play out. But you can't stand and you can't hold it. Those are the big things.
Coach, you touched on Tyler Ennis's play a little bit, but it seems like his play is kind of progressing as long as the talent is there around him and also the talent of the other team. What kind of problems do people have?
Well, I've never seen him not play with other talent, whether it was in the AAU or in high school or with that team. He's really good at, he was 20 of 22 from the foul line in Maui. That's pretty strong. He can really get to the rim. He distributes the ball at a high rate. He's just an outstanding player. I don't think it really matters who he's playing against, but we've spent a lot of time getting our preparation ready for him, along with the other guys. But again, when you're playing, I tell these guys all the time, the better the team, the more individual talent they have that makes each other better, and that's where we want to be. Well, I think he's a big part of that with their team.
Your transition game, how key is it? Probably one of the best ways to avoid the 2-3 zone is to beat it with transition.
Well, you're never going to avoid it. I think you just gotta stay with what you do. You have to continue to build on what you do. There's no question that we're a better team when we're pushing the ball. No question about it.
Coach, Yogi struggled last year against Syracuse in the first half, especially. For him, just him alone, do you think it's a bit of a revenge game?
I don't believe that would be nothing that would have anything to do with this game, with this team. I don't think. Now, if we go out and we have a tennis match and we're going to play a golf match, then maybe we could talk about an individual matchup. But I think to use the term revenge or that he has something to prove, that's not what it is. Yogi's one of the best players in the country, and we're going against one of the best teams in the country. Yogi's one of the better players in the country because the fact that he makes his teammates better. So, frankly, it's a team game, and I think, I'll skip all the hyperboles of this guy or that guy. They have individual players. We have individual players. The bottom line is we've got to go in there and play as mistake-free as we possibly can against an outstanding basketball program in a very, very tough environment.
Because that being said, what can he learn from watching himself last year? You know, obviously that wasn't his best game.
Oh, I think it motivated him. I don't think there's any question that this summer, he was motivated. I think he's a much different player. I think he's a much better player. All you got to do is look at his percentages. And we spent a lot of time on a game-by-game from where we were a year ago at the same time to where we are now. And I always use Victor as an example with these guys. Like last year, Victor's free throw percentages were in the 50s. His three-point percentages were in the high 20s, low 30s. His field goal percentages were in the high 40s. He ended up being fourth in the country in field goal percentage. But his blockouts, his offensive rebounds, his deflections, his shot challenges, all those things were extremely high. And so what you're trying to get across to him constantly is you've got to do all the little things, and eventually the bigger things come. Well, I think that's the same thing with Yogi. I think he's improved in so many areas, but when he's distributing the ball, moving the ball, getting teammate shots, moving without the ball, defending at a high level, it's amazing how well he shoots. It's amazing. And I think where Yogi's had his struggles is where and it's only happened a couple of times, where maybe he isn't as centered on what we need in the sense of getting everybody moving early. And at the same time, treating every possession for what it is, a new one, no predetermination. I don't think there's any question that an experience going through that a year ago helped this summer and has helped this year thus far. But again, it's our first trip on the road as a team in that type of environment, and we're going to be depending on his leadership.
Zach?
I was going to ask basically the same
Okay.
thing. So.
Got time for one more question.
Yes. All right, thanks.